Introduction. Echoes in the darkness. Silence. A heavy, oppressive silence. It pressed down on me, suffocating, as I stepped across the threshold of the abandoned asylum. Dust motes danced in the faint rays of sunlight that pierced the grime-coated windows. A chill ran down my spine, a primal fear triggered by the palpable sense of despair that clung to the air. The asylum loomed before me, a gothic monolith of crumbling brick and shattered glass. Nature was slowly reclaiming it, vines worming their way through cracks, roots prying at the foundations. Each step deeper into the asylum felt like a step back in time, the present fading away, replaced by the echoes of the past. I was drawn here, compelled by an unseen force to bear witness to the horrors that lay within. The air inside the asylum was thick with the smell of decay and dust. It clung to my clothes, invaded my nostrils, a constant reminder of the building's decrepit state. The floor was littered with debris, broken glass, chunks of plaster, rusted medical equipment. Each step I took sent up a cloud of dust, swirling around me like ghostly apparitions. I moved cautiously through the main hallway, my flashlight cutting a narrow beam through the oppressive darkness. The walls were bare, stripped of any decoration or warmth they might have once held. Graffiti, faded and peeling, served as the only reminder that the outside world still existed. Names scrawled in anger, pleas for help etched into the plaster, grotesque images that spoke of a darkness within. Despite the decay, there was a strange beauty to the place, a haunting, melancholic beauty that spoke of a time long past. The asylum, I knew from my research, had a long and troubled history. Built in the early 19th century, it was intended as a place of refuge for the mentally ill, a sanctuary where they could receive care and treatment. But the reality, as I was discovering, was far more sinister. Over the years, the asylum had become notorious for its inhumane treatment of patients. Overcrowding, inadequate staffing, and a lack of understanding of mental illness led to horrific conditions. Patients were subjected to experimental treatments, physical restraints, and isolation. Many lived out their days within these walls, forgotten and abandoned by society. I paused in what was once the treatment wing, a chill running down my spine as I imagined the horrors that had taken place here. The air was thick with a palpable sense of suffering, the walls seeming to vibrate with the tormented energy of the souls who had perished within them. As I ventured deeper into the bowels of the asylum, I began to notice a change in the atmosphere. The air grew colder, the silence more oppressive. I felt a prickling sensation on the back of my neck, as if I were being watched by unseen eyes. The silence was broken by a faint sound, a whisper, soft as a breath, carried on the edge of hearing. I stopped, holding my breath, straining to hear it again. There it was again, a mournful sigh, a name uttered in despair. It seemed to be coming from the end of the hallway, beckoning me forward. I knew the dangers of letting my imagination run wild in a place like this, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, urging me towards the unknown. Section 4. Shadows of the Past. The hallway opened into a large, cavernous room. It was once the asylum's common area, a place where patients would gather for meals and recreation. Now it was a desolate wasteland, littered with debris and shrouded in an eerie silence. The faint light filtering through the grimy windows cast long, distorted shadows across the floor. As I moved deeper into the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows were moving too, shifting and contorting in the periphery of my vision. I stopped in the middle of the room, my heart pounding in my chest. The air was heavy with a palpable sense of sadness and despair. Section 5. The Unseen Presence. I froze, my breath catching in my throat as the shadow continued to solidify. It swirled and pulsed, a dark silhouette against the decaying backdrop of the asylum. Fear, primal and immediate, surged through me, yet I couldn't tear my gaze away. It was vaguely humanoid in shape, but there was something inherently wrong about its proportions, its movements. It moved with an unnatural fluidity, as if unbound by the laws of physics. A cold dread settled in the pit of my stomach, whispering that I was witnessing something beyond the realm of the explainable. The shadow seemed to sense my gaze, turning towards me with an almost predatory grace. I couldn't make out any features, just a void where its face should be, yet I could feel an overwhelming sense of malice emanating from it. Section 6. A glimpse into madness. As I stared into the heart of the shadow, images began to flash before my eyes. Vivid, horrifying images of the asylum's past. Patients, their eyes wide with terror, strapped to beds. Doctors, their faces obscured by surgical masks, performing gruesome procedures. The air crackled with unseen energy, the stench of decay intensifying as the spectral visions swirled around me. I stumbled backward, overwhelmed by the onslaught of sensory overload. The boundary between reality and nightmare blurred, the line between my own fear and the palpable despair of the asylum's past dissolving into a maelstrom of madness. The whispers, once faint and fleeting, now roared in my ears, a chorus of anguish and despair. Names, dates, fragmented pleas for help, all washed over me, threatening to drag me down into the abyss of the asylum's tormented history. Section 7. The search for answers. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs screamed for mercy, the echoes of my own panicked breath the only sound in the oppressive silence. I didn't stop until I burst through the decaying doors of the asylum, back into the blinding light of day. Gasping for breath, I stumbled away from the building, my heart still pounding in my chest. I could feel the asylum's gaze on my back, cold and accusing, as if daring me to return. I knew that what I had experienced within those walls would haunt me forever. The whispers, the shadows, the overwhelming sense of despair, they were seared into my memory. Section 8. Lingering impressions. Despite my best efforts, many questions remained unanswered. The shadow, the visions, the overwhelming sense of malice, these defied rational explanation. Had I truly witnessed a manifestation of the asylum's dark past? Or had my own fear and imagination conjured up those horrors? I returned to the asylum several times after that first harrowing experience. Each visit was a battle against my own fear, a struggle to reconcile the tangible evidence of decay and neglect with the intangible sense of dread that permeated every inch of the building. I documented everything: photographs, audio recordings, electromagnetic readings. I sought out patterns, anomalies, anything that could shed light on the true nature of the asylum's haunting. But the more I learned, the more elusive the truth seemed to become. Conclusion: the asylum's grip. I never found definitive proof of the paranormal within the asylum's walls. No spectral figures caught on camera, no disembodied voices captured on tape. And yet, I left that place forever changed, haunted by the lingering feeling that I had only scratched the surface of its darkness. The abandoned asylum stands as a stark reminder of our own mortality, a decaying monument to the fragility of the human psyche. It is a place where reason and logic falter, where the boundaries of our reality blur, and where the echoes of suffering continue to reverberate long after the silence has fallen. Did I encounter the supernatural within those walls? Or did the asylum's own darkness seep into my soul, warping my perceptions and twisting my senses? The answer, I fear, lies somewhere in the shadows, forever out of reach, and perhaps that is the most terrifying truth of all.